Several cities in East Texas have added propositions about taxes to the ballot in the upcoming election. KLTV7's Lauren Tier spoke with the mayor of Whitehouse, who explained the proposition as a reallocation of funds for the benefit of the economy. Again, they stress this is not an increase in taxes.
Tonight in Whitehouse, the Chamber of Commerce hosted a community meeting to talk with voters about a special tax election called by the City Council. The meeting was an effort to clarify two new propositions. City of Whitehouse Mayor James Wansley says one of them, listed as Proposition A on the ballot, has two goals regarding the allocation of the sales tax.
One, we're going to change the category where it still goes into general fund. It's funding the same thing that it was before, but it's not double counted. It's only counted as income tax or as sales tax. It's not counted as property tax. And we're also going to take a little bit of that money and put a little bit more of it towards economic development.
Ultimately doubling the amount of funding going toward economic development to be competitive with surrounding cities when trying to attract public and private businesses. Because the portion of the sales tax would no longer be counted as part of property tax income.
The benefits for the community will be greater transparency in how we collect and report property taxes and more economic development opportunities that the city can bring.